All right, everyone. Laid off Buzzfeed employees are now a problem for Buzzfeed as well, and not just in the layoffs themselves, but now they're demanding something different, which is they've written a thing up and they're saying, hey, a lot of us have a lot of paid vacation days that we never took. We just stacked them up like corporate Americans tend to do. Like people have like insane. They'll have like 3 months stored up of it. Usually get like it's in an average sort of office environment, you tend to get 2 weeks a year of paid vacation days that you can take. Usually it starts after the first year. Hold it over to make sure you're not just gonna do that in the first month and then quit or something. Like try to scam the business out of a bunch of money, out of a fairly decent paycheck. So some of these people probably have at least some weeks stored up. They want to be paid for that, which is kind of fair when you think about it. I mean, they are due that. The company, as part of its policy, has given them those days. They didn't give them prior warning that they were going to be fired. And it's not like BuzzFeed has stopped existing. That's the other thing. It's like if BuzzFeed were like, hey, we're bankrupt, we have no money, we can't pay you. That'd be one thing maybe, but they're still there. I mean, they just had to lay off 15% of their workforce, which is hilarious. The alt media is still growing. The legacy media is like fucking kaput. It's like, just fucking fold already. Sell your domain name and stop existing. There is no point to bothering to struggle. You're going to end up like Yahoo or Sears or any other vestigial business for-profit corporation has been, and it's going to be fucking funny. It's going to be hilarious to me when BuzzFeed no longer exists and the alt media is still going along just fine. They deserve not to exist after all the defamation and libel they've produced, after all of the bullshit that they've made, all of the tabloid gossip sort of bullshit that they've written about. Yeah, screw BuzzFeed. They shouldn't exist. Same with Huffington Post and most of these other groups. Selling lies. People want lies, they just get it on YouTube, and that's why they're cracking down the weird side of YouTube, because the weird tabloid stuff that's there is more popular. But then, and this, I don't know if it's still up, and I'm not going to link it because, BuzzFeed is wonky and doesn't allow archiving. For some reason, people haven't built an archiving site yet that just ignores the request of the website to hold over most of that bullshit. Like, and one BuzzFeed employee, I can't remember which one, wrote an article, actually put it on BuzzFeed itself, a very bitter article, which is like, oh, are you still working at BuzzFeed? And it's like a quizzer with yes, no questions, but the third one is always really sarcastic. And it's like talking about corporate excess and lack of mobility and terrible work environment and crazy shit like that. And basically the hopelessness of these employees that have been laid off. And I'm assuming that this is one of the laid off employees. Like, they're like, hey, it's going to be my last day here. I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I've already been fired. So they've got bitter employees, employees that want money. Nobody likes them. Including people on the left, like the last thing on here is like, oh, unionize your workforce, like encouraging, I guess, BuzzFeed writers to band together to stop the corporate abuse there. You work for a for-profit corporation that pretends to be like far left, dude. There's nothing to be done about it. This is how cutthroat corporate America works. BuzzFeed's no different. They can have all the feel-good, family-friendly, pro-censorship bullshit that masquerades as suppressing hate or human interest stories or whatever. It's the same fucking shit. It's no different than NBC or Fox or anything like that. Don't fucking put them on a pedestal. They're no different. And they're probably not going to exist in 10 years, in all honesty. Considering, when we look at these groups, they're all similar. Huffington Post, BuzzFeed, Vox, Salon, all these groups having to fire people and downsize, and sometimes downsize their accommodations, like Salon switching to a lower rent district, I guess, because they couldn't make the rent that they were paying before. It shows a systemic collapse of that kind of so-called journalism. It's no longer fun. What was interesting and maybe hip 10 years ago or 5 years ago is no longer interesting or hip. Look, there are a million live streamers at any given fucking time on the internet that can supply better commentary. You have, essentially, imagine cable, but there are a million channels on it. Are you going to watch the ones that are currently available and controlled by corporations? No, a lot of people are going to find other stuff that's interesting within the genre of sort of their interest in general. News. I do news analysis. I know literally hundreds of other people that do it, sometimes to quite large audiences, day in and day out. You don't need BuzzFeed anymore. It's not necessary. In the internet era of decentralized content creation, these groups are simply vestigial. But it's really, really funny to see this business get, lambasted. It's not by some outside group. It's not like, oh, evil far-righters are criticizing BuzzFeed. No, this is their own employees. People who are ideological leftists, I'm sure, every single one of them. but they've been laid off because BuzzFeed simply isn't profitable. Hey, look, if you have a bad business design, if the way you run your business is shit, yeah, you might have some problems now. Isn't that a fact? Yeah, BuzzFeed having difficulty. When are they going to ask Obama for a bailout? When is George Soros going to write a check to him like he does a dozen other groups and try to bail him out? Don't worry, I'll be the guarantor of your prosperity, and I'm a philanthropist. You know, I got my money by being a business cutthroat, but you know now I'm generous with it, and I'm so wonderful and benevolent. That's how these people operate. It's like when Bill Gates donates a lot of money. It's like, okay, how'd you get it in the first place? It's a different story now, isn't it? You know, or Tim Cook and all these people. I'm loving it. I mean, I'm having a ball reading about all of the complaints that the BuzzFeed employees have had, and their tweets were delicious. And then Twitter comes out, accidentally confirms that they're actually harassing their own private users for saying learn to code. Like that's a separate issue entirely. They're like, they confirmed accidentally that yes, indeed, because it's a targeted harassment campaign, which is total bullshit. So if I go to one of these policy wonk sort of pundits here and I say, oh, learn to code, that's automatically part of a harassment campaign. How do you know who's actually part of an organized effort and who's just saying that out of the kindness of their heart because it's a better career proposition for them? Oh, instead of being reliant upon a bunch of companies that have been systemically downsizing for the last couple of years, maybe you should look for something else to do before you get laid off. It's probably a good idea. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if some of the employees at these groups are like, they're more hesitant to put all their eggs in one basket. They should probably do something else. Start a YouTube channel. Trust me, it's long term. It's probably a better career move. Literally start your own like podcast or something at this point. Decentralized content creation is everywhere, but the BuzzFeeds and Salons and HuffPosts are dying. And let alone the cable news media, they're collapsing too. Don't you think that there's a reason that all of these groups are in decline at the same time? It's not just because of trustworthiness, it's because of the interest involved. And because of the cost of production. And then literally, groups going bankrupt or having financial problems. BuzzFeed has financial problems. Salon does. Huffington Post apparently does. They had to lay off 10% of their people and get rid of their opinion section. Which is like, I don't know why they got rid of the opinion section. Like, that's the only place that Huffington Post ever had something that was halfway decent to read, because occasionally someone who wasn't totally far out there was actually the one writing the article. I guess they decided it was inconvenient. One too many articles from people that Ariana Huffington disagrees with, or some bullshit like that. It's just really funny. That's about all. Peace out.